The stage was set for what was supposed to be a celebratory moment, as Clint Eastwood made a rare appearance on The Late Show with Stephen Colbert. The crowd stood and cheered for the 94-year-old icon who entered with his signature squint and slow, composed stride. Stephen greeted him with enthusiasm, clearly thrilled to have the living legend on set. They exchanged light banter about Clint's legacy, his westerns, and his minimalist directing style. For the first several minutes, the conversation was respectful and nostalgic. Stephen made a few jokes about Clint's stoic silence, to which Clint replied with a smirk, "I only speak when it matters." But then, things took a sharp turn when Colbert introduced a segment about the political themes in Clint's recent films, particularly his controversial takes in movies like Richard Jewell and The Mule. Colbert, known for his progressive stance, framed the question carefully, but Clint bristled almost instantly. Stephen asked, "Clint, you've said in the past that political correctness is killing comedy. Do you still believe that in today's climate?" Clint looked at him squarely. "I think it's killing everything: comedy, art, even common sense." The audience responded with a mixed reaction, some clapping, others murmuring. Stephen smiled and nodded, but gently pushed back. "But don't you think it's about creating space for people who've been marginalized? Isn't that a good thing?" Clint's expression hardened. "Sure, but you don't create space by erasing the past or silencing people. There's a difference between respect and censorship." The atmosphere in the studio shifted. What had started as a respectful exchange began to simmer. Stephen attempted to lighten the moment with a joke about Dirty Harry being cancelled in 2025, but Clint didn't laugh. "I'm not here for jokes, Stephen. I'm here because people need to hear truth without the filter of political correctness." Stephen tried to move forward, pivoting to Clint's war films, but the tension lingered. He brought up a quote Clint made in a previous interview where he criticized modern masculinity, saying men had become too soft. "Do you still feel that way?" Colbert asked. Clint leaned in. "I said what I meant. We're raising generations of people who get offended by everything. Back in my day, we handled things face to face, not on Twitter." The audience chuckled nervously, unsure whether to laugh or cringe. Stephen tried to counter with humor. "So, you're not a fan of safe spaces?" Clint shot back. "Safe spaces don't exist in the real world. You make yourself strong, not fragile." It was clear now that Clint had come with his guard up. Colbert's trademark smirk faded slightly. "But don't you think kindness is strength too?" Clint gave him a long look. "Kindness isn't coddling. There's a difference, son." That response stirred murmurs throughout the audience. Son felt condescending, even if unintentionally. Stephen's eyes widened for a brief second before he chuckled. "You're old enough to call me that, I guess." But underneath the humor, tension grew. "So, Clint," Stephen continued, "do you think your generation sometimes romanticizes the past and overlooks its problems?" Clint straightened in his chair. "We didn't romanticize anything. We dealt with real hardship, real sacrifice. We didn't complain every 5 minutes about being uncomfortable," Stephen tried to interject. "But progress sometimes comes from those complaints, right?" Clint wasn't having it. "Progress comes from action, from grit, not hashtags and outrage." The audience grew noticeably restless. Some clapped in agreement, others remained quiet. Clint's voice had grown sharper, and the old-school grit he was known for now clashed with the modern tone of the show. Stephen leaned forward, shifting gears. "Let's talk about storytelling. Your films often center around flawed heroes. Do you think that's reflective of how you see yourself?" Clint responded bluntly, "I'm not here to dissect myself like I'm in a therapy session. I make movies that show the world the way it is, not the way people wish it were." Stephen's grin was tight now. "Well, we live in a time where nuance matters more than ever." "Some critics argue your films overlook that," Clint interrupted. "Critics are paid to complain. I don't make movies for them." There was a pause, long enough to hang awkwardly in the air. Stephen tried once more to pivot. "Let's talk legacy," but Clint wasn't finished. "My legacy isn't up for debate, Stephen. I've done more in my life than half the people criticizing me have done combined." That remark got a few gasps, and Stephen's tone turned serious. "Clint, I admire your work, but I think conversations like this are important," Stephen said, voice firm now. We don't grow if we don't challenge each other. Clint stared back. There's a difference between challenge and ambush. He invited me on for a conversation, not a lecture. Stephen clarified, I'm not lecturing, just asking tough questions. Clint stood slowly, removing his mic. I've answered enough tough questions in my life. I don't need this. The audience gasped again, unsure if this was part of a bit or real tension. Stephen stood too, extending a hand. Come on, Clint, we're just talking. But Clint waved him off. I'm done talking. You want sound bites, not substance. With that, he stepped off the stage, camera still, rolling as crew members looked on in disbelief. The crowd remained silent. Stephen turned to the camera, unsure whether to cut or continue. Producers quickly went to a commercial break, and the internet lit up within minutes. Clips of the tense exchange flooded X, YouTube, and TikTok. Headlines screamed variations of Clint Eastwood storms off Colbert, Eastwood unleashes fury, and Colbert faces legend's wrath. Fans split quickly. Some applauded Clint for standing up against what they called woke media, while others criticized his stubbornness and refusal to engage in meaningful conversation. Colbert addressed the situation at the top of the next show. Sometimes guests surprise us. I have tremendous respect for Mr. Eastwood's work, but interviews should be a two-way street. Clint, for his part, released a brief statement through his rep. Clint Eastwood has always stood by his values. He doesn't believe in sugarcoating truth. That statement was met with applause from his loyal fans and skepticism from others, reigniting debates about free speech, generational divides, and celebrity entitlement. Media outlets covered the fallout relentlessly. Panel shows debated who was in the wrong. Podcasts dissected the tone of every sentence, every expression. Some veteran journalists defended Clint's position, calling it a refreshing throwback to unfiltered honesty. Others felt his tone was dismissive, condescending, and averse to accountability. Meanwhile, Colbert continued his regular show, but noticeably avoided political hot seats the rest of the week. CBS insiders revealed there had been an emergency debriefing after the incident. The show's bookers reportedly started vetting guests more stringently, concerned about further live controversies. The mood among the crew was described as tense but focused. Despite the chaos, ratings soared. The episode broke records for online views and late-night syndication replays. Even reruns of Clint's old westerns saw a bump in streaming numbers, showing how polarizing moments often turn into profitable spectacles. Weeks later, Colbert was interviewed by another outlet, where he said, I never want to make guests feel cornered, but I also won't shy away from questions that matter. Asked whether Clint would ever be invited back, he paused before saying, never say never.
Ow.
But that would take a long conversation off camera first. Clint, on the other hand, returned to the spotlight at a film festival in Texas, where he was greeted with a standing ovation. During a panel, he referenced the incident obliquely, saying, sometimes people confuse discomfort with disrespect. I've never been afraid of either. His comment drew laughter and applause. Despite being kicked off the show, Clint's image as a no-nonsense icon was intact, if not further reinforced. Still, it left viewers wondering, had two strong personalities simply collided? Or was it a deeper clash of worldviews, generations, and what we consider respectful discourse? In the aftermath, think pieces emerged on the state of celebrity interviews, the weaponization of outrage, and how aging legends interact with evolving media landscapes. Some saw Clint as the last of a dying breed, direct, firm, unapologetic. Others viewed him as a symbol of resistance to progress. Colbert's show recovered its rhythm, but traces of the clash lingered. Every guest after that night was subtly more cautious, every joke slightly more calculated. Clint, meanwhile, went on directing one final film, his swan song, as some called it. Ironically, the movie centered on a man out of time, misunderstood by a world he no longer recognized. The art imitated the controversy, and audiences took sides once again. In the end, Clint Eastwood's unexpected eruption on The Late Show wasn't just another viral moment, it became a cultural mirror, reflecting society's deeper divisions, reminding everyone that even the calmest cowboys still have fire behind their eyes.